Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Carlos Toledo. Round of applause, please.
Thank you, Steve. So it's a pleasure to be here all around this big stage with a lot of companies talking about technologies, about additive manufacturing. And I will try to give just my point of view and try to give you information about the different calls where you can go to applicate and try to get money to fund this extremely risky projects related to additive manufacturing. So I'm just trying to give you this open view, this open vision about Industry 4.0 and how it is related with the key enabling technologies and where additive manufacturing is one of the main that is playing now and for the future. So we are going to talk about different calls and different projects. This is CDTI. We are celebrating this year our 40th anniversary, which is relevant for us. And we'll give you these kind of figures and results about how are we doing it. We'll talk briefly about national instruments and also international cooperation. So what are we doing for these 40 years? We have been doing these kind of tools to help Spanish companies to improve its competitiveness through R&D projects. So many of you, some of the industrial companies that are attending this week in the exhibitions, they have been involved in this kind of instruments we use to fund the projects. And where can we find CDTI funding? We have these kind of projects in any sector. So the transportation chain, supply chains, the traditional manufacturing, or just always food or machinery, or even energy. So we are any sector where we can identify R&D, increasing technologies, then we have sure an instrument to help these projects and these companies or technology consultants to resolve the problems and to get money to involve this increasing value. So what have we done during this period? Big figures, just more than 12,000 beneficiary companies and also more than 23 billion euros through these years. So how do we do it? For example, if we choose 2016's result, we have committed more than 739 million in more than 1,500 projects. This goes to companies important. More than 61% is directly to SME companies, which is relevant because our ecosystem through all the states is mainly dedicated to this type of company. And also, I like to highlight here this 40% of companies that was the first time they came to us looking for help to this orientation to identify the most appropriate instrument to fund the risk of involving in R&D projects. And also we take always, how to say, a side view to the technology transfer becoming from research entities, which is in the kind of projects where they can participate, and during the period of 2016, it was more than 62 million directly going to these research entities. So this is trying to convince you of looking for us to help you in this way of additive manufacturing. And how is the curve? What are the trends of our funding? You can see, just this is a kind of brief analysis, but you can see even though during the hardest economical crisis, we were from 2008 to 2012, we have been increasing our funding in order to cover the scare or the fear of the private companies to invest in R&D. What is the expected impact of R&D projects? How can we get people convert instead of accepting of doing R&D projects. Mainly, we say to the general managers of the company, we want you to think ahead, okay? To think about the strategy. Where do you want to see your company in the next 3 or 5 years? This is the first, in our opinion, the first step to go to R&D transformation in any sector. And then, once you have defined this strategy, try to be ambitious. We have to think that this is a global market. We have to compete companies in any place of the world, and then it's especially important for us to innovate, being ambitious. And how do we put that in a project? Just try to quantify the goals of what you want to get. We have the whole cycle of the funding of the projects internally in our entity. So our projects are with this mean of bottom-up open topics. It's a quite different, significant from the European Commission programs where we participate too in the Horizon 2020. But we have open topics. So this is relevant because you can identify any line of technological increasing that can be important for us to fund your project. How do we do it? We have some calls for national, domestic projects, we could say, and also we are present in different cooperative international programs. We have what we say continuously open call. This is quite different from what is done in other countries and even coming from the European Commission. So right now you can go through our website, you can ask for the application, and then you will receive the password and login, and then you could go into and applicate for explaining to us what is your next R&D project. Okay, it's continuously open. And also we have a partial of our budget, of our yearly budget, dedicated to what we could say as singular competitive calls. Okay, the proportion is about more than 70% is our continuously open call, and about the other 25 to 30% is in singular calls. And how do we fund? Which kind of financial instruments we have for these different calls? Okay, we are working in a monthly basis system for this open call. It is every month we have a committee where we approve the proposals, and we are funding these projects with a soft loan with a differential of 0% over the tax, which is a long period of returning, 10 years, and then we have a part which is non-repayable that could be from 30% or to 33% for international project. The success ratio, we could say that it's over 60%. That means that more than 60% of the projects that are coming to us are being funded at the end with public funds. Okay, so that's a great success. Because how do we do it? Because we have this direct contact with the applicant people, so with the companies, and then we are helping these kind of projects that are in the limit. Then we can help them to transfer, to be ambitious, to identify these R&D activities. We have a special continuously open call for innovation, which is to increase production capacities, to automatization and these kind of things to transfer processes, which is in the way of a loan, which are differential of 0.2. And we have also singular competitive calls. Just it's quite difficult to go into detail of all the calls, but just to give you some highlights. The main, Neotech, it's a grant up to 250,000 euros per project for a startup company, okay? Companies that are new in the market, with technological-based companies, less than 3 years since they were born, okay? And this is typically, we launch a call per year, Now, in fact, we are doing the evaluation of the 2017 call. We have received more than 350 applications, and we expect to fund more than 100. So it's a quite interesting proposal in terms of grants for these starting companies, technological companies. Many of them involved about additive manufacturing. Also, 100, it's our traditional call for big consortiums. And then we are funding with loans and grants. Also in Global, which is based for funding international projects, and USTRY. Then I will explain more in detail in the future. Also, we have another additional service for the R&D projects, which is tax reductions that Spanish companies can get through our issue motivated report. Okay, so when we fund an R&D project, we give to the company an issue motivated report to help to give security for the tax reduction, which is another additional benefit through the soft and interest funding of the R&D projects. So here you have the more detailed structure of this funding proposal. Just to say that we are working always with budget over 175,000 euros per project. That's our lower limit. And this is the complete structure for the innovation projects. We can choose between 3 or 5 years of amortization for the loan. This is a kind of graphical way to explain which is the procedure, okay? I like to say to the companies that when we get involved with them and we fund a project, it's like a kind of marriage. Okay? We get married for a period, from 1 to 3 years typically. They have to develop the project, and in the middle they will have a lot of contact with us during the process of evaluation and also with the payments and project certification. The main is that we will go together with you and we will accompany through all the process, and you will have always a contact to know which is the next step. Okay? And you have to be concerned about doing and developing your R&D project, which is the most important thing for you. And okay, remember, innovation in manufacturing is one of our main goals. Especially one of my main goals, because I am involved directly in the orientation of advanced manufacturing projects. Now we could talk about technologies. How do we identify the additive manufacturing? This is one of the typical charts of the key enabling technologies. During these days, you have been listening about this a lot. And we consider this involving through the transformation of Industry 4.0. We are starting to learn how to qualify these kind of projects in order to get results of our committed funding for certain technological. Because as I have mentioned in the beginning, we have always open topics. So it's quite difficult for us to identify, but we are trying to do this effort. It's a kind of example you have seen in many of the presentation, which is to motivate the people. So now there are flying components, quite critical components. This commitment from GE Aviation is quite clear about the future and the present right now of the additive manufacturing. Also, this another example from the Airbus, this cycle that they prepared especially. And now, we don't fund this kind of projects because these are not Spanish projects, but we have our examples. So through the last period of 5 years, we have identified about more than 472 projects, which means more than 229 million involved in Industry 4.0 CAT technologies. And if we go in detail for projects in additive manufacturing, we can see that we are involving during these years more than 100 million euros. We expect, we have seen during the day, this is going to grow because the market is growing. the activities are growing, and also the number of players in different sectors are getting more important day by day. These are some examples of end user we have identified. For example, machinery, tool machinery, compressors, turbines, rapid tooling, aerospace components, healthcare applications, buildings, construction, hybrid and electric vehicles, textile products, composites, plastics. So it is additive manufacturing. It's a quite horizontal and transversal technology that is growing daily through different sectors. Now, in this part of my presentation, I will try to give you an overview of how are we involved in different internationalization programs for R&D. Some of you, I suppose, that you know about Horizon 2020. Even previously to me, there have been here people from the European Commission talking about it. We'll give you just some brief figures of our participation, and we will talk later about the rest of the internationalization programs that maybe are some less known. No? So this is Horizon 2020. We are present on the science-based and the leadership competitive framework and societal challenges. Positive results. We are in the middle. As previously they have said, we are now preparing the working program for the second part of the whole period of the Horizon 2020 program. And then we have analyzed what have we done in the previous 3 years of complete execution of these programs from 2014 to 2016. And we have to say that we can be happy. We have been involved in more than great projects, and we have been committing and returning daily to Spain more than 1,933 million euros. This is the 4th position, so it's quite competitive for us, this position. And we all together have to be very happy. Other international programs that probably you will have listened less about them. We have Eureka, unilateral, and these are continuously open call, and also we have special singular calls like InnoGlobal and USTRY. So we have these kind of big programs of cooperation where Spain is participating with more than 70 countries in the whole vision. Mainly we have 2 groups. The first one, which is Eureka, that you can see related to all the Central and South America with Spain. And then we have Eureka, where we are involved with most of Europe and with the participation of Canada, South Africa, and Korea. These kind of projects are being funded in the end in the similar way as we do with the conventional R&D projects in the national programs. But we can get an extra percentage of the grant joined to the loan, okay, which is at 33%. It is, the process is a little bit complicated because you have to do previously this international application, and the countries involved, at least 2 countries, 2 companies, 2 entities from 2 different countries into the program, they have to commit about the R&D activities of the projects. And then you get the label for the project that will pass in the end to the each country funding rules, okay? In our case, the Spanish entities are coming to CDTI to get the final funding. And also, where there are no entities that we have got an agreement of funding projects, we have this kind of unilateral tool that means that we can fund this project as international, but with the support of our external delegate in the area. So, for example, you have an R&D project to cooperate with Australia, and then if we don't have a partner there, a government partner who is going to fund this project, we can identify this like a unilateral, and then the Spanish company will receive the complement through this international cooperation. So the main message of my presentation of today is not try to you understand all the different programs. That's quite difficult, and is not your daily job. The main is that you keep our contact, you know what are we doing, and if you have the ideas and you have the good projects, you can go for us, and we will help you to identify which is the best tool for funding this project. This is our external network, where we have CDTI people, experts in R&D activities that may help you also to look for partners in this kind of cooperative international projects. Just a kind of example, the Eureka net, that it's mainly focused on European projects, as I have mentioned before, but also with participation of Canada, South Africa, and Korea, for example. Here you can see the map of the full members and associated countries. It's relevant. Figures are welcome always to show us what are we talking about. So it's more than 30 years and more than 5,600 projects during this period. It is quite a lot of public funding to help to transform the companies to these more innovative projects. And let me talk briefly about USTRY. USTRY is a special singular call. It's centralized, European centralized. It's an agreement between the European Commission and Eureka, focused on SME companies with technological base also. Here you have the figure, which is quite interesting. There are typically two calls per year, one in the first part of the year and the other in the second. It's like February and October typically, or September, October. And finally, once they got which are the list of the proposals to be funded, then they pass to the CDTI also for funding. Then it is typically about 10 million euros we are involving in these two calls per year. These are the countries that where you can find the partners to participate in this call. Also in Global, which is a specific CDTI call that we use to fund with grants also the cooperative international projects. And finally, the ERANET co-fund, which is another program of co-funding between regional and national funding with grants for thematic projects in different areas. You can see here Manunet or Food or Eramin, which are a specific area of thematics for technological projects. So, after all this kind of mixture of calls and projects and approaches, the main is that if you have a good project, if you are looking for partners, or if you have the good idea and you know what do you want to do, just be ambitious and try to transform that in an R&D project, and then probably we can be your partner to help you in this transformation, using our funding capacity and our orientation that we are going to accompany through all the process. So this is all from our side, and thanks.
Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Are any of you looking out for a partner? Do any of you have a good idea? There will never be a better time to ask for a little help. Does anybody have a burning desire or a question from the Spanish government about funding for projects? If not, I'm going to give Carlos a gift for being here with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
This
Steve.
opens up like this.
I have to say yes then?
You have to say yes then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming from the European, I said the European Commission.
Thank you.
The equivalent of